Welcome to the rainy 5th edition of Meet the Streets, a podcast about street photography, for street photographers, and by a street photographer. In today's episode, we're going to meet Payman Hazheer, an amazing street photographer based out of Sweden. Come back each week and meet another street photographer from somewhere else in the world. And now, Payman. So for those that don't know, this is Payman Hazheer, an amazing photographer who, if you don't know, again, you really need to change that. Payman, great to meet you. And can you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, nice to meet you, and thanks for inviting me. My name is Payman. I am a photographer based out of Stockholm, Sweden. Not Switzerland. A lot of people mix that up. It's Sweden. It's very important to us Swedes. So I'm here, and said nice to be invited to talk about photography.
Wow, this is cool. So again, what I didn't know, actually, there's a lot I don't know because we're just meeting. I've been following you for a while, and again, very happy I am. But you were saying earlier, again, when we weren't recording, that you had lived in DC, that you were studying journalism. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so basically, my family moved from Iran to Sweden, and they moved far up in the north part of Sweden, a small village, about 3,000 people. Very dark and very cold place. So I decided to just want to, move around and explore the world. So I off to Washington, D.C. in the U.S., studying journalism and marketing for a couple of years. That's basically where I also started taking pictures of people in the streets, mainly. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Coming from a small city to Washington, D.C. was quite a big experience for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've only been to D.C. a few times. I think once I was covering kind of a political thing. Once was to watch as a Rangers fan. It was back in 1994, and I got to go to the Rangers were playing the Capitals. The Rangers beat them in 5 games. The only game they lost is the one that I traveled to DC for.
Okay. Was that a good thing or bad? Photography point.
Yeah, from that point, that wasn't even photography. That was strictly as a fan, and it was awful. And it was so quick. I didn't even get a chance to explore how, again, the thing. To this day, I still really haven't seen DC from like a point of view of actually appreciating it. It's interesting to photograph political events and whatnot, but it just from a tourist standpoint, it's an impressive place.
It is, and I think during my year, Bush was inaugurated for the second time, so it was a massive protest. So that kind of the whole Washington D.C. kind of sparked my journalistic approach to photography, documenting stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, at that time. At that time, I wasn't doing too much street photography. I was mostly, again, just making money again in photography. I've been doing this professionally for a long time, but I hadn't really gotten to the point where I was again doing my civic duty. That came along later, but that's cool. So what? So you got into photography down in DC.
Yeah.
What about did you start off with digital? Because I know that right now you're not dabbling in, you're shooting film as well as digital. But did you start with digital? Did you start with film?
I'm actually last week I sold my last digital camera, so I'm purely film now. But I came into I'm 46 years old in 2024. But I started photography when I was around 22, 23 years old. And by then, my first camera was a digital camera. So I never experienced the film era. So, you could say that I'm quite late into it.
But that was, so you're still 20 years in. So that changed.
Yeah.
So So when did you start recently? So it's fairly recent that you've been doing, I'm looking at what you're doing. You've done some impressive work with it.
Thanks. No, I mean, the thing is that it's been quite a long journey, but around thinking about film. But I came to realize a couple of things. So one was that whenever I search for inspiration, I tend to go back to old photo books, Peter Lindbergh, Richard Sandler, Eddie Van Vessel's, the war photographer, and they were all pictures taken with analog film cameras, mostly Tri-X. So I always was searching. I never went to search for inspiration with photographers that shot with digital. So I was like, why am I doing digital where I'm seeking inspiration from film and trying to replicate that into digital medium? So that was one of the reasons. And secondly, was the fact that when I looked at my entire catalog of or body of work in for the 20 years, um, I'm not happy. I wasn't happy with the consistency of the photographs because whenever you change a camera or gear, the rendering tend to change as well. So if I start with Fuji and I go to like a Q2 and then a M camera, and then a M11, M10. So I wasn't happy with the consistency of how my body of work looked. So and with Tri-X or film, you know doesn't really matter that much from a visual point of view what we shoot with as long as it's the same film stock. So for me, it was like if I go over to film, I can be much more consistent moving forward in my body of work, regardless what camera I use or not. And the third reason was, or is probably because when you're shooting with digital, you tend to, I didn't learn photography as much as I'm doing with film. And I don't know, it's a cliche that everybody says, but to me, it means that shooting with digital, you kind of, you take the picture and you look and then you adjust. You can adjust the exposure up. So you don't really focus as much. I became quite sloppy around composition, about light, because I just adjusted my mistakes there and then. But with film, those mistakes hurt so bad because you go out and take a picture, you think it's good, you come back, you missed the exposure or the composition or whatever, and those mistakes tend to stick. So next time I'm going up, I kind of add that mistake into my knowledge bank of, okay, now I'm taking this picture. You know, that was the mistake that I don't want to do again. So I take much fewer photos, but to me, those photos are much more meaningful and better. And I'm much more focused when I want to take pictures with analog. So I think that's kind of the reason why I'm now 100% film shooter.
That's cool. Yeah, again, I agree with 100%. Yeah, coming back from the other direction, I started off again. You're 46. You're a young man to me, so I got you by 10. Yeah, I got you by 10 years.
Oh,
So
really?
I'm 56. So I started off shooting like in digital was it was in the future,
Mm.
and so it just seemed like almost the impossible dream. I kind of remember the first known digital camera again that anybody talked about was this Kodak based on a Nikon body with like 1 megapixel and cost like
Yeah,
$30,000. And
yeah.
like
So
why would you
expensive.
do that? So
Oh.
and yeah, so we kept on doing film. Then eventually it was a digital came on and it became the thing. And
Mm.
so I always found myself shooting fewer shots than most of my contemporaries who had started off with digital because I
Mm.
was trained to every time I press that shutter, it cost me money. And
Yeah,
was and
exactly.
if I run out of it, we're done. So you just never do that. But and I did find was once really got the handle of digital that
Mm.
yeah I did get a bit sloppier. Because you're like okay I can take a dozen to every one I would take with film, and so
Yeah.
yeah. So the it's rare nowadays that I go back to film. I think that's largely because it's just so god awful expensive these days. But when I do go back, I still find that I shoot less.
Mm.
I think my hit rate is more. Like
Mm.
per frame per roll, I'll get more shots that I like than walking around with a digital camera. And
Yeah.
it's weird, it's strange, but yeah, I think like you're saying, it's just a matter of you're not to. not to be cliche or not
Yeah,
no pun intended, but you focus harder and you
yeah, I think so.
and so
And I,
yeah.
and it's and it seems like, I mean, coming from analog, that's where you started, and that's how you got your training
Hmm.
into thinking visually. But for me, you came from digital. I started off by just run and shoot everything and all the time, which is good in one way from the beginning, because I guess you're more open because it doesn't cost you to shoot.
Right.
But I find it much more, yeah,
Yeah. I'll say
reward is
this.
much.
Yeah, so the other thing with what's cool about digital is that it opened up photography to so many more people that might have been hesitant to get in because of the again how scary sometimes it is. You go, hey, I have no idea what's on, if anything
Yeah,
is actually recorded here, and for
exactly.
some reason, yeah, it seems like once digital came around, suddenly like bam, like out of the blue, you're seeing beautiful work across the board from people that would have never even probably bought a camera, and
Yeah,
now
exactly.
and then
So
yeah, and then
there's a place for the two medium. I think there's no like one is better than other. It's just like whatever rocks your boat and helps you getting motivated and inspired. Just go with it. It can be digital, it can be film, or AI for that matter. If you're into
yeah.
that stuff.
There's a topic as far as AI, and not saying like AI with, say you go into Photoshop and you want to clean up your image and
Yeah,
it's good, just AI. I've got no problem personally. I have no problem with a lot of AI tools, but I will say that I have a uh, hesitation to call something that was created from scratch uh, as an image, and as beautiful as the image may be, to call it a
mm.
photograph, because again, technically by the term photograph, again, you want to bring it down to its
Yeah,
Latin roots. There's no photo in there,
yeah,
and
exactly.
so it can't be. It can be beautiful, and it's an entirely different art form, which I
Yeah,
have ultimate respect for people that can create anything beautiful from anything.
yeah,
But let's not call it a photograph. Let's call it, and then but not to be what's called mistaken for, you go into Photoshop and I want what's called like whatever, and you use some AI knowledge to make that a little bit better. But we're only brightening, we're color correcting or something like that. More power to you.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I think it's just a totally new medium. For me, it's more or less, a visual artist, or what do you call it? Like a creative. So basically, rendering visually, just the way people create ads or whatever. It's just that you can make it look like a image, or analog photo for that case, but it doesn't mean that it is. So yeah, I think that's just kind of another reason for me being just photographing analog is, or with film, is just like it is film. It is what it is. It's tangible. I don't have to think about what that means in the new era of AI tools and so on. So it's quite refreshing actually. Just keeping it simple as I can.
I love that. So are you currently a full-time professional photographer, or is this kind of like your just
No,
passion?
yeah, so it's my passion. I run a business, a creative agency based out of Stockholm. Done that for a long time, and at early, just right after I was graduating in DC, I was kind of in between. Okay, should I become a photographer? And then I want to become a war photographer. Like, is that the path that I want to go, or do I want to move into like business and marketing and running my own business in the future? And I chose it later on, and it's quite. I mean, the backstory of it's a little bit complicated, but I try to bring it up in a easy way. And the thing is that we came into Sweden as immigrants, my family, when I was 8, because of the war between Iran and Iraq. So, and by that time, um, there were not that many immigrants with dark skin in Sweden. So you were very quickly put into a category of, or a box of, you're an immigrant, and with that comes a lot of negative attributes per default. So I think my mindset and my entire family's mindset was like, I want to get out of that box of being an immigrant in with dark skin in Sweden with people with light skin. So I chose the path of, okay, I want to get into a business so I can prove to myself and prove to society around me that I can be successful. And the only way to get out of that box was to basically trying to accomplish the same standard or a higher standard than the Swedes around me. So kind of the reason why I went to that path, but also I really thought about what will happen with my photography as passion if it becomes a profession. If I don't become this super famous war photographer, what's the option? And I was like, let's just keep it as a passion, and I might change the path as I go. But as for today, I do just purely passion work. I do some projects where I feel that it's a good fit. But I don't want to end up in a place where I have to shoot, I don't know, cars or fruits or burgers to make a living, because that would just kill my biggest passion in life.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. The whole conflict photographer thing is interesting. It didn't even dawn on me when I first started out. I was in the military. Yeah, I wish I had taken up photography then, but it wasn't even a consideration. It was not even in my head. I thought I was gonna be a doctor, but
Oh, really?
yeah, because I was a medicine. I was a corpsman in the Navy. So
Oh,
yeah, so yeah, they didn't give us guns. They gave us bags with bandages and drugs and a target on our head.
oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, that would have been, you would have a very nice head start if you just had a camera and been in the military.
Yep.
I mean,
But
you get the experience and all of it. So, yeah.
But yeah, so after that, I wasn't even thinking when I got into, because I was kind of late to photography. But yeah, then it was all pretty much selfish ideas and wanting to be wanting to be famous and all that kind of stuff. So the money was pretty good. And again, I didn't become famous, but it was what it was. And then later on, of course, I got altruistic, and and then I think, wow, well, maybe I can be a conflict photographer. So the more I checked into it, the I'm not sure that it's a rare breed that can and so much respect goes out to anybody that can accomplish that. And just not the mere act of staying alive is good enough, but
Yeah.
but knowing what they go through and the mental scars that you have to carry with you by seeing what humanity is capable of doing and recording it is insane. So
It is. I actually have Eddie Van Wessel, who is a conflict photographer that covered more or less all the conflicts the past 20 years. He's become a good friend of mine. So I meet him whenever he's visiting Ukraine a lot. It's just 800 kilometers from Sweden. So, but I can see when he comes back, and I can see his eyes that, all right, there's a lot of stress because he is basically going directly to the front where they're bombing and so on.
right.
Then that gives you some perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, no, again, I can't. Again, the world needs that, and I have so much respect for it. And but I can say that even though every now and then I have that pang of guilt that I didn't get out there and do it, and then luckily it's just a periodic one, and the rest of the time is going, thank God, because again, I've got my I don't even know where to bring this. Just that I didn't do it. I'm happy people can do it, and I guess I'll leave it there.
Yeah, exactly.
and again, I'm sure you're asleep at night, and you're
sleep at night, and I mean, it's probably more important than ever that people do it. So I just I met him, and I was like, oh, can I follow you to some of the conflicts areas? And he was like, you don't have to do it, because it's his profession to do that as a living. It's like, you don't have to do it. You should just do what you do. Go out, take beautiful portraits of beautiful people around you. You don't need to go to a war zone to do that. So that kind of got me thinking that it's probably good to just leave it where it is.
Totally. Anyway, good for him and good for everybody else out there doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's again, like I say, I already know I'm familiar with your work, but for those that are watching this and who aren't, let's impress them. So, let me hit the share screen here and get this thing out there. All right, here we
Yeah.
go. So
All right.
yeah, just tell me about this.
So this is just a guy in Stockholm. This was, I think, 2 summers ago. Um, Basically, when I go out and searching for people, I really want to look for people that are having some sort of a depth, carry some pain, or there's a lot of emotion, and I can see that quite quickly by just browsing the crowd and looking for eyes. And so I saw this guy, and he was standing and talking to another guy very intensively. So basically, what I did was I just went in between them, two guys talking to each other,
Hmm.
and took this picture. And I shot it with a Leica Q2, so it was very easy for me to just jump in and take those pictures. And
It's interesting.
he just continued to talk and do gestures and with his friends. So it was a in
Wow.
and out kind of thing.
So you didn't have any interaction with him prior to this. You just jumped in and got
No,
the shot.
yeah, I did
Wow.
have the I did talk to him afterwards. I mean, just after a couple of seconds, because it was just, oh, what's going on, and I was just saying, like, what you guys are doing, it just looks so intense. So I just want to capture it. And I'm a street photographer, and the usual talk. So um, yeah, because I didn't want to, because it was just so intense, and I want to capture that, and I didn't want to reset that the feeling he was having. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah. The thing is
Yeah.
that when I'm an introvert by person, so I find it ironically very hard to go and talk to, ask people about permission. So, but when I see someone that is like this, then it's everything just like, okay, I need to get this. I don't care what he says or what happens.
Wow.
So, yeah,
And so yeah, this guy's got, I'm sure, has an interesting backstory.
yeah, he does. So this guy is. A lot of people think that this photo was taken in the U.S. because Swedes tend to think that cowboys only exist in the U.S. So I took this picture in Stockholm as well. So there's a guy. This guy, I saw him a couple of times in the city center, but I didn't dare to ask him. But then one day I was like, "This is you just have to do it." Um, and I walked past him, and I just turned to him and said, "Hey, excuse me, can I take your photo?" We were both walking, and he goes. I was just expecting him to just throw out some angry reaction to me because he looked insane. And he just turns towards me, and he's such a nice and polite guy, and goes, "Yeah, of course I can do that, but it would be nice of you to present yourself with name." And I was just like, "Oh wow, did not expect that coming." So I said, "Hi, I'm Payman. I'm a photographer. Just you have such a amazing look. Would be great to just take your portrait." And he was like, "Yeah, no problem." And I said, "Well, can we just move like a couple of meters to the side, because I just wanted to have him with a white background." So just moving around, took pictures, and I was like, "How come your face is?" I asked him how old he was. He was like, "Oh, I just turned 65, or 67." He was like, "Okay, what's the story with the tattoos and stuff?" Like, "Oh, actually, I got my whole face tattooed when I went into pension at 65." It's like, okay,
Right.
but did you have no? That was a dream of mine, but I couldn't do it because of my job. So that day I turned 65, and we just went to tattoo artist, tattooed my face. He had tattoos all over his body before, so
Wow.
yeah. But it was just such a this you tend to build up these monsters in your head around that puts limitations for you. Like I was just seeing this guy so many times. Oh, he's probably quite angry and not the type of guy you want to talk to. But the opposite, he was just such a nice guy, and just he said yes directly. So
Very cool. Yeah, obviously, he's got his year of his birth tattooed
Yeah,
on his eyebrow.
exactly. And when you take the hat off, I have another picture of that. There's a spider web on his entire head. So
Very cool. If I remember right, didn't this win? This is again, you pretty much own, and I'm going to get into that. Like practically stock and LFI with their
with
master shots, and
photos.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
this is
think
one of the master shots if I recall.
yeah, I think yeah, definitely one of the master shots. Sure.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, that's one of those like markers when you do something and all of a sudden you take a picture like that. It's like, oh, this is unbelievable. I've walked a cowboy in Stockholm and like never happens. And then he's also tattooed his entire face. So
Yeah,
yeah. Um.
it's this
So
gentleman.
yeah. So this gentleman is also in Stockholm. It's just very close by where I live, and I was just at 7-Eleven having a hot dog, and I just in the corner of my eye, I just see this super dressed gentleman with a white suit, a white shirt, the hat, yeah, the whole look. Very dark skin. He looks like a gentleman, black gentleman from like the 70s. Probably same suit but from the 70s. So just walking and same thing there. I just ran out in front of him and just like halted him with a hand and then start taking pictures of him. And he just like worked along.
Wow. Yeah.
And the smoke came out of his. So he kind of understood the assignment when I just went out and put the hand up and did it. So
I
this
love it.
shot, yeah, this shot won the Paris Photo Festival, the gold medal. It's been highlighted by Getty Reportage a couple of times, and like a photo of the week. So, and also this was also displayed at the Cultural Center in Istanbul
Nice.
last year at the exhibition. So it's been one of
Yeah.
those photos that have been taking me around
Nice.
different
Very
places.
cool. Again, I love it was again just again obviously the gaze, everything about it, but just that extra little bit about him just releasing that smoke coming right out. Again, he's just
Yeah,
got his lips parted just enough, and yeah,
just
it's just perfect.
that. I mean,
So
that's the thing that if you have the right energy meeting the people that you're meeting in, and they see you give them the chance to understand what's going to happen. Most of the time, people just tag along because they understand, oh, this guy's gonna take a cool photo of me. He probably likes how I look and the pipe, and so he just opened his mouth and the smoke came out, and that was it.
So out of curiosity, after you've approached somebody, whether
Mm.
it's you start, then you speak to them at some point, do you offer them to give them like a file of a portrait or
Yeah,
anything?
yeah. I mean, almost every time, yeah, they want to have the photo. Is it okay if I get it? Yeah, sure. Just send it to him. This guy didn't want it. I was like, I'm a good photographer, you probably want this. He was like, no, it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's hysterical as to how many times when I've approached people and they don't seem to really care to have like I carry with me a card because again I live in France,
Mm.
but even in the U.S., but here in France, since my French is really bad, so I've got a card that I give out that's everything's in French. I tell them if they don't speak English that if you just here, this is how to contact me. I'm going to give you something. They
Yeah,
always seem to take it, and I would say at best a third, literally at best a third of the people ever contact me. I'm like,
yeah,
what it's just interesting that people are like, hey, I'm just I'm walking through my daily life and somebody wants to take my picture. Good for them.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
excellent.
Exactly. Well, I think that's the thing. A lot of when I do workshops or presentations, that's the most common question is like, how do you get to these people, and where do you see them, and how do you do it? And I just tell them like 90% of the limitation that makes it hard for you to go and ask is just stuff that you're doing by yourself. Most people, 9 out of 10, is if you do it in the right way, they actually think it's a nice thing that you want to take to photo. If you get them compliments, they get a very nice photo from a good photographer. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's all, I always thought it's the energy that you put out. If you come across as like you're doing something bad or you're doing something creepy, they read that. If you're coming
Yeah,
across as what's called, hey, I just, and you're honest, and you just say, I love the way you're, a little flattery, a smile, something like that, and people just, they're thankful.
yeah, for
They,
sure.
excellent. So, yeah, this has one of the, again, with the bandana on his face and the
Yeah.
look, has the look of like, okay, how did you approach this guy?
So this guy, I was doing a project about a basketball court in the city center, and he was sitting a little bit far off from the rest of the group. And he just had the bandana on. I had no idea why. And I just showed him, just pointed at my camera and pointed at him because he was just talking on the phone and was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And then he just put the phone in the pocket and said, oh, well, how, and in English, how do you want me to, what do you want like me to do? And I was like, do what you want to do. Like, just do whatever comes to your mind. And then we take it from there. And then he goes like, yeah, with the fingers on his head and just took the photo. So it wasn't more than that. And that's, I was super lucky because I was just like, do whatever you want to do. And does this pose. And this is to me is an important photo because when I took that picture, I got a Leica Q2. It's a fixed lens, 28 millimeter, not considered the best lens or the focal length for portraits.
Hmm.
But I had a vision about what I wanted to take very, very like strong, impactful photos where you almost are very close to the subject. So when I took that, when I took that, I was like, it was a marker for me. Okay, this is exactly the type of photo that I want to take. Because when you shift path, you start doing something new. You're always exploring. Like you don't get it right. Your vision is not like you're not calibrated to vision. But when I took this photo, I was like, yes, this is exactly the reason I got this camera, this focal length. And then from that point, that summer just produced so many good photos because I found a marker on how which type of photos I want to take.
Nice. Yeah, if that was you did that with a 28, that's amazing. Like how close you
Yeah,
must have been in order to
yeah,
and I don't see any particular signs of distortion. Again, it's a great camera and a great lens. So
yeah. It is. So yeah. So you just have to with 28. You just need to know that sweet spot of not being too far away or being too close. And if you do it right, you get that slight distortion. Just enhances the feeling of you being very close rather than creating this fisheye effect.
right, very very nice.
Thanks.
And now for something completely different.
Yeah. So this is a clown in Istanbul. So it's super early morning. I think it's like around 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was just going from my hotel to the city center, and I see this clown just put his makeup on while he's taking a smoke. And so basically same thing there. I just asked him, "Hey, is it okay if I take your photo?" And it was yeah, just okay. And then I think it was like two, three, four shots. And I was like, "Thank you," and I just gave him like a couple of euros as a thank you because he's one of those like street performance artists to get money. So, and I think that was it. It's very like probably a 10-second photo shoot in some back street in Istanbul.
Cool. I've never been to Istanbul. It's definitely high on my list. Back, I was in Izmir when I was in the Navy, but again, I
Mm,
got actually some decent photos from that back in film, of course, because it was 1989. But
okay.
let's go to yeah, Istanbul has escaped me. It won't now because I'm a lot closer than I was when I was living in New York.
No, Istanbul is great because obviously because you have one foot in Europe and one foot in Middle East, you get a very 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 special mix of atmosphere. And also Turkey has such a amazing history and strong heritage of photography. So there's a lot of good photographers there. So you should just connect with someone through Instagram. They'll be more than happy to just not only invite you to show you all the nice places, hidden gems, but they will most likely invite you to their homes, which means that you'll get out of Istanbul and see, the more how the people live and get to the slow places. So
That'd be cool.
I can definitely recommend Istanbul.
Excellent. That'd be great. Again, I can think of this. Yeah, not to sidetrack the whole thing, but yeah, when I was in Izmir, again, I ended up meeting this one, just making a phone call and having the hardest time back in the old days of payphones, and the payphones there were different than the payphones in the U.S. I had no idea how to do this.
Yeah.
I literally, so some girl walked up and helped me. We started chatting. She said, "Well, she works on the NATO base.
Mm.
How long you in? Whatever." She introduced me to her brother, who then the next day just picked me up on a moped, and
Yeah.
he took me everywhere. I got photos and food and history and a tour, all
Yeah.
because somebody helped me make a phone call.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great. I think that city kind of embodies how great photography is, because it connects you. It connected me with you. Probably never would have happened if you were
Mhm.
not both in photography. And wherever I go, I know that I have a list of photographers on my Instagram that
Cool.
I just can reach out to. So at Istanbul, the guys there is just like, yeah, come over, come to my family. Here's my wife. Here's my brother. It becomes so nice because you create these like long-lasting, life-lasting bonds with
Yeah,
people that share the same passion as you do.
that's awesome. Again, I recognize this as another master shot.
Yeah, it is. This was also taken in Stockholm. I think it was like on during lunch one day, and I mean, this photo doesn't make her justice. Her hair was so like on fire. It was almost like her soul was up in the air. And I just also one of those moments I saw her and I was like, I don't care. I need to take a portrait. So I just stopped her and said, "You look absolutely beautiful. I mean, you gotta let me take." And she started blushing and said, "Oh, I'm not even having a good day." I was like, "If this is your bad day, if you get a model contract, I just want 10% of the cost. Try to switch a Gucci." She was like, "Yeah, yeah, for sure." And we just stopped her by the sidewalk, and it happened to be a white background. I took a couple of photos. I asked her, would you like to see the photos? And she said, "Yeah, show me on the camera." I showed it. You want me to send it to you? She's like, "No, it's okay, it's fine. Thank you. You made my day." So also one of those very, very brief moments on the street.
Isn't how beautiful is it that in such a small encounter you can actually alter this woman's day and just like literally make her,
Yeah.
just make her feel good.
Yeah, she was like walking down the street with her head down, and we spoke. And she said, "Oh, oh, you just made my day. Thank you so much." So that makes it all a lot nicer.
It does, 100%. Okay, obviously we're switching over to your film work now.
Yeah, the film stuff. You can see that by the stains and the scratches. This is not a fixed up negative that I did not. So this photo was probably taken out last summer when I started shooting with film. Same thing there. I didn't get the grip of film. I was just like, oh, this is so tricky. I can't get the exposure right. Too slow. Wherever I developed a negative, that scratches on. So I was almost on the verge of going back to digital, just like surrendering to my like, okay, just screw my vision. I'm just gonna go back to whatever I did before. So when I took that photo, it was one of those moments like, ah, yes, one of those markers of this is exactly the type of photos I want to take with a film camera, like very
Great.
classic, timeless. It's also taken in Stockholm. That was one of those like, okay, you're doing the right thing. Keep on doing this. You will learn to develop better and take better film photos. Uh,
So I know on
so
a Q2 it's got a fixed 28. What lens do you have? You probably have a
this
few
is
lenses. But do you have like a preferred, like a go-to focal length for your
this was actually with the 35 Oppo.
Okay.
which is a beautiful lens for film actually. So I was shooting with 35 millimeter. I
Yeah.
use 28 or 35, depending on what kind of mood I'm in. Or
Right.
so,
Yes, you,
yeah.
yeah. So you're obviously wide open and nailed focus on his eyes and that, which is not easy to do.
No, no, and it's I find that actually my hit rate is almost 100% with a manual focus camera for portraits
Right.
when compared to when I was using a digital, because the digital could, lock it on your eyebrows, or you think you're on the eye, but you're not.
Yeah.
So actually, I have no problem shooting at f2 with the rangefinder, finding the focus on the eyes.
Mm. Very cool. And how'd you get into
Yeah.
here?
So this is also taken with film on the same camera, like MP and 35 Oppo. This was a summer. This guy who was a guy standing right in the city center, and he was giving kids from the suburbs, or any kid, but most of them from the suburbs, free haircuts because he had a saloon in the suburb. So, and there was a long line of young guys to get a haircut. This guy was sitting there and just was about to get his head shaved off from the side. He's getting some sort of a fade. Um, so same thing there. So I approached the barber, and I looked at him to kind of get his approval of interfering. So when he did that, I just checked out the light. I adjusted the cameras, all the settings, because I just wanted to not jump, but like just fold in front of him and take a picture. I didn't want to fold in front of him and destroy the moment.
Right.
So everything was set. I just leaned in and both one picture, two, three, and I got this, which I'm very happy with. This is actually one of my favorite photos.
Cool.
Great.
And the detail in it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Now it becomes. I think when you upload it here, the solution comes a little bit down.
But yeah,
But
but I can still see again, knowing having a background in film, it's good. Again, like digital, everything is just like so sharp. Like there's a
yeah,
certain, again, there's a certain, it's hard to explain. You kind of have to see much more film to understand like, the ability
yeah,
to both be sharp and yet not as sharp all
yeah.
at the exact same time.
That's the thing. That's the you have to experience it to appreciate it. So you get it's exactly as you say. You get the sharpness, but it's still round. The highlights, you have much more details in the highlight versus digital. The background,
Mhm.
even though it's out of focus.
Yeah.
So, but
And
you have to be a little bit nerdy to see those things,
again,
which I
well,
love. I can talk about
yeah.
rendering for like hours and days.
So do you process your own film or do you send it out?
No, I do it myself. So I develop I live in an apartment or a flat. So I develop it in my bathroom. I scan it at home. I have a friend who has a dark room, so I prints there. I do, and it's I love the process. I know if you come from film to digital, you're like, oh, it's so nice to not do all that. But I really love it because
Yeah.
you take the photo and you take the roll out, you put it up, and like, oh, it's there is something on it. You dries it up, you scan it, and you just start coming into the computer. I absolutely love that process.
Yeah, so funny.
Really.
What I miss is not uh, developing film as much. That was never my favorite part. But the printing, I love,
Mm.
love, love, love. It was so cathartic, and you can just turn on your radio. You got have a glass of wine off in the corner or
Yeah,
a
yeah,
beer. And I could go all night and just
yeah.
and working on like a single print just to get it exactly. Hopefully, I can get multiple prints, but it's just to get it exactly the way you want. Which
Yeah.
another year you down the line, you look at it again, like, hold on, I want to revisit this and go and do it a
Mm.
little bit different. But
Exactly.
each one is even if you're running through the whole process, like, and you want to make 5 copies of the same picture, there's still going to be
Mm.
slight variances, and that's the beauty of the whole thing.
Yeah, it becomes a craftsmanship when you do it, from scratch, taking a photo on a negative and develop it in a print, which is very extremely rewarding. And at the end, also, it looks so good.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the
with
other things, I do think. contact sheets. I
Mm.
think there's more information you can get from looking at a single contact sheet than you could ever get by looking at your metadata, because
Yeah.
because everything comes and you can just make it better, make it worse. You just bump this versus telling you, okay, not lying to you anyway. You overexpose this as opposed to that shot. Like, okay, your exposures are all over the place, or your exposures are all on point. So you
Yeah.
can't lie. Yeah, you can't lie to a contact sheet. Like it's one of those
No.
things. Like you either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
And again, so again, these are the things, the nerdy things that I miss that I really don't. Nobody seems to care, and I guess it doesn't really matter, but I still miss it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you take the photo. I take photos for myself, so of
Mm.
course I obsessed about the details and find it. And also, it's when people that know how it is to take a photograph of film, they appreciate, like, oh, you got the exposure right. You know, they know how much work is behind making that happen, which is also nice to talk to people that actually knows about the process.
So what was going on here? Again,
Same
it
thing. This
looks
is
like a light bulb over this kid's shoulder, but I'm like, it's shaped so perfectly like one that it can't possibly be exactly. It's probably a light bulb, but the 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 star coming out of it, and
uh, it so this one is all the three pictures that we're looking at is from the same project about kids hanging around in the city center of Stockholm. So the same thing. So this is also during the same summer, some sort of a soccer tournament in the city center. But what I liked about this photo myself was that it's not cropped or adjusted. And shooting with a rangefinder, you know that the rangefinder is not exact. And I really wanted to crop him from the nose. I took that picture, and you only get one chance. So he was facing his friends. So I just said, I just focused on his face, and I just shouted, "Bror," and "bror" means brother, and that's the slang they use in that age. Hey, brother. So I just said, "Hey, brother," and he turned around, and then I took that one photo. So it's to me, it's like the composition is perfect. I got the frame lines perfect. He's lined up perfectly. That was also one of those markers, like, oh, it's so satisfying when you make it right and it becomes such a good photo.
very cool, nice. You know,
Yeah.
another technical question here.
Mhm.
So since you're shooting on film, are you metering in camera, or do you carry what's called a hand meter, or do you do a combination of the two?
I'm metering in camera, uh, especially depending on if I have time. Because sometimes you feel like, oh, this guy is, he's not going to allow you to stand there for a long time. You probably got 10 seconds to take a picture. Then I just do it in the camera and take a photo. And it works. It works pretty well. But what I've done recently is that on my phone, this app called Light Meter,
Yeah,
and I just downloaded and started using it. It actually, the light metering is a little bit more accurate with that one than in the camera. So, but I just try to keep it as simple as possible, and 9 out of 10 times the camera does it for you.
that's cool. And
Yeah,
you're using what, an MP?
yeah. I use an MP,
Okay,
black paint. It's,
nice.
I mean, and it started to brass. You can't see that on the photo, but
That's
every time I pick him up, I'm just falling in love. I mean, I can look at it 10 times and it's, oh, this is such a beautiful camera. Can't wait to go out and take pictures with it. I
yeah,
absolutely love it.
I hear you. Again, I don't have I've got an M3 from the 50s, which actually one of the few things I have that's older than I am. But
Yeah,
it's the but my M10 monochrome.
yeah.
I actually like the
It's
silver cameras personally, because I think they just look older, and there's a certain classic thing. And no matter how people just automatically assume that it's an old camera, and nobody bothers to think, oh, wait,
yeah.
And as far as Leica goes, like people I see tape over the like your average. If the person knows what a Leica is, that tape doesn't fool them. And if what's called,
Exactly.
and if they don't know what a Leica is, they don't care about the red dot.
No, that I mean, I also think that just like stop putting the red, just tape over it. If they
Hmm.
know, they know.
Right,
If they
yeah.
want the camera, they're gonna take it anyway.
They're going to take it anyway.
Uh,
Most likely they're not because they're going to think it's an old,
yeah, it looks like
like
a whole
it
camera.
looks like
So
an old camera, and they're just like, there's no money. Why would I want an old camera? Whether it's a new digital or everybody asks me on my M10s, are those film? I'm like, I usually tell them no unless it's good. I had one situation where I was in, where was I? In Pagao,
yeah,
and so this guy who a good bit bigger than I was, and just cracked out on something, and just chatting me up. I'm thinking to myself, this guy's gonna make a grab for my camera,
mm,
and so I'm thinking, so we're chatting. I'm trying to in my head think, okay, how can I get out of this situation without getting hurt?
yeah.
And all of a sudden, he like paused at my camera. He's like, that's old. I'm like, yeah, they just don't make them like they used to. And I wouldn't
Mm,
show, I just kept it close so they couldn't see the digital screen.
yeah. It
And
happened to be in Stockholm last week. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
it's
Maybe this
perfect.
was-
Hmm.
No, I exactly the same thing. I was standing with my MP and just like browsing to see if there is someone. And this guy approaches me, and I mean, there is no chance in hell that a guy was into photography at all. And he was like, okay, so yeah, so that is that an expensive camera? I was like, oh, this one. No, it's even like film camera. You can't even. What is film? It's like you have to. There's nothing here. You can look. You can't see anything. I was like, oh, okay. And I just walked away. He had no idea what this thing costs.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Again, if he did know what it cost, his next question would be, now, why would you do that?
yeah, exactly. So no, it's good. That's one of the good things, perks with shooting with a rangefinder style camera.
Yeah, I got you. And so, okay, this is the last in this, but I'm going to,
Mm,
earlier I mentioned to the people that don't know, that you should pretty much have like you practically have your own section at LFI, like you should have like stock in them. And so I happen to have brought up your page, and it's just,
okay.
I just want to show people, this isn't even all of them, but I'm just going to I'll go from the top here. So for those that don't know LFI, you can join it without having to have it's a beautiful site. They have all sorts of good stuff. And actually, if I recall, to get your image on, you don't even have to have a Leica. Like they'll take
No,
non-Leica
exactly.
images. I've just never seen
Yeah,
one, but anyway.
I've seen a couple of people actually up there, but yeah, it's free for everyone.
Mhm.
I discovered like photography international a couple of years ago, and I think it's such an amazing platform because you can upload your stuff. The editors will pick you and give you this master shots award for photo of the week, which is actually in the beginning if you're starting off, it's quite empowering. Like, oh, there's actually some editorial team choosing my photos. And they have been very supportive of my work because they put me in prints, they have interviewed me and been very empowering. But more importantly, this is one of the places to actually log into and or not log into, but to go to because you can filter with different categories. If you want to see street photography,
Uh,
portraits, Asia, you can browse different areas, but you
yeah,
can also then filter on what type of camera, focal length. It's actually a very good inspirational tool if you would trying to explore new focal lengths. So how would a portrait in 24 millimeter look? And then you can actually put that in and go and look. So
yeah.
it's a really I can really recommend it for everyone regarding if you should like it or not to visit that page.
Yeah, 100, I agree for exactly those reasons. Your ability to go in and say, okay, if you're thinking you want to buy a different lens, or you like what was like whatever, it's good to narrow it down, like from focal
Yeah,
lengths, whether it's manual focus, whether it's film, whether it's digital, what the looks are, all that kind of stuff. And when I said
yeah.
I love this shot, again, so tell me something about this if you would.
This is in obviously in London. last year, August 20, no, 2 years ago. So this guy was same thing. He was sitting and listening to music and smoking, and I saw that he was, on the sides is like this black screens. So I could directly see that. Oh, I can use that reflection to make something interesting. So I just went in and just pointed at him like, "Oh, is it okay if I take a photo?" And he didn't even take his like AirPods off. So he was like, "Yeah," just nodded and continue smoking, and he was flipping his phone. And I just like for maybe a good minute just took some photos and changed the angle and did it, and it was like totally fine. And afterwards, it was like looking at me, nodding, I nod back, and that was it. Like no interaction whatsoever apart from that.
Cool.
And this was shot with M10 monochrome and 35 millimeter.
Let me see again. I've got the us blocking that. I just want to show for people what we're talking about. See here. So again, this is a master shot picture of the week. It shows where it was on info, but and you go to camera. M10 monochrome. It tells you the lens used, all the settings. I'm like, it's a great way for people to learn that are just interested in geeking out on the tech data, as well as not just the tech data, but just the beautiful images. So.
Yeah. Also, I mean, what they do is, I think that they do is that they have an editorial team, and for me, kind of what kicked off my hobby career in this was that they see, I mean, if they see you upload a couple of different photos and they see a red pattern, like, okay, this is a very consistent, or this is a project, they actually attempt to take those up, like say, hey, we see that you're taking this type of portraits. It looks really interesting. Is this a project? And that's how it started for me. And I said, yeah, this is about a project I'm working on. Then they interviewed me and put me on their blog, because there's a fantastic blog there as well. Then after that, it was like, oh, we would like to have your work as an interview piece, quite big piece. It was 7-8 pages in their Leica photography magazine. And then when that happened, after that, different magazines started to contact me, and so I think it's a fantastic platform that Leica I've done for photographers.
That's very cool. Of course, you have to be, again, not everybody's going to get that, but it's something to aspire to. So it's and it's nice that they do it. Yeah, so it's nice that they were doing it without you actually seeking it out. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
So
highly recommend it.
I'm sure I could talk about more again if we were sitting with some drinks. I'd be chatting all day long. But I don't want to
in Paris or in Stockholm if you come visit.
I have to get up there, but I don't want to take up too much of your day. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this. So
really nice. Thank you for inviting me. It's really nice. I mean, as you know, I can talk about rendering and we can deep dive. This was just a scratch on the surface.
Exactly. Very cool. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, and
you too.
I'm sure I'll see you again soon. Or if not soon, sooner as soon as possible.
Yeah. And if you have questions, if you're listening, those of you who are listening or watching this, just shoot a message to me on Instagram. I'm more than happy to answer it there. Or if you come into Stockholm, any of you, I'm here. I'll take care of you, show you the few gems that we have in Stockholm. They're not many, but we do have a couple. More than happy to support you on that.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.